Daf Yomi, Tractate, Bava Metzia, page 93a, top of the page, with the words Hanicha Laman Da'amar Ein Harav Yachol Lomar, etc. This works out well according to the one who says that a master cannot say to a slave, "Work for me and I will not feed you." In other words, he is obligated to provide the slave with livelihood. For the purposes of the case at hand, this means that the master cannot stipulate that he is relinquishing his slave's right to eat while performing labor, and therefore it works out well. But according to the one who says that a master can say to a slave, "Work for me and I will not feed you," what can be said? He should be able to stipulate to that effect with regard to his minor slave, as he is entitled to all profits that result from the slave's labor. Rather, according to this opinion, one must accept a different explanation. Both this Mishnah and that Braita are referring to a case where he does not provide the slaves with food, and the two Tannaitic sources disagree with regard to that very issue. As one sage, the Tana of the Braita holds that a master can say to a slave, "Work for me and I will not feed you." And one sage, the Tana of the Mishnah, holds that he cannot do so. The Gemara is puzzled by this response. If so, Rabbi Yochanan, who says that a master can say to his slave that he will not feed him, has left aside the Mishnah and acted and ruled in accordance with the Braita. This is obviously in a different time, a different era, where slaves were more prevalent, and this is not for today, but this is an interesting, snapshot of how things were. Rather, the Gemara retracts the previous explanation in favor of another. Everyone agrees that a laborer eats from the property of heaven. And even if a father or master provides his child or slave with food, he cannot stipulate that the child or slave should not eat when performing labor, as the father or master has no rights over that which they consume. And what is the meaning of stipulates that? Rabbi Yehoshua says in the Braita that one does not mean, as in the Mishnah, that the master relinquishes the slave's right to food. Rather, he stipulates that they should eat food before they work, so that they will be too full to eat at a later stage. The Gemara raises a difficulty. If so, in the corresponding situation with regard to his animal, there should likewise be no discussion at all, because he can stipulate in this manner and distribute straw for it before it starts work, as everyone agrees that this is permitted. Rather, the Gemara retracts this interpretation and says that in fact they disagree with regard to this. At one stage, the Tana of the Mishnah holds that a laborer eats from his own property. In one stage, the Tana of the Braita holds that a laborer eats from the property of heaven. This proves that this issue is in fact a dispute between Tanaim. Okay, we finished the Gemara there. We started a Mishnah now. In Mishnah, a man can stipulate on his own behalf that he receive a certain increase in his wages instead of eating the produce with which he works. And similarly, he can stipulate on this behalf of his adult son or daughter, on behalf of his adult Canaanite slave or Canaanite maidservant, or on behalf of his wife, with their agreement, because they have the basic level of mental competence. In other words, they are legally competent and can therefore waive their rights. But he cannot stipulate on this on behalf of his minor son or daughter, nor on behalf of his minor Canaanite slave or Canaanite maidservant, nor on behalf of his animal, as they do not have the basic level of mental competence. In the case of one who hires a laborer to perform labor with his fourth year fruit, such laborers may not eat the fruit, and if he did not inform them beforehand that they were working with 4-year fruit, he must redeem the fruit and feed them. If his fig cakes broke apart and crumbled, so they must be preserved again. Or if his barrels of wine opened and he hired workers to reseal them, these laborers may not eat, as the work of the figs or wine had already been completed with regard to tithes, from which point a laborer may not eat them. And if he did not inform them, he must tithe the food and feed them. The Mishnah adds, watchmen of produce may eat the produce of the field or vineyard by local regulations. In other words, in accordance with the ordinances accepted by the residents of that place, but not by Torah law. Gemara, the Talmud says, the Mishnah mentions watchmen of produce. Rav says they taught this halacha only with regard to watchmen of gardens and orchards, in which the produce is still attached to the ground, and therefore the watchman would have no legal right to it, were it not for the local custom. Watchmen of wine presses and piles of detached produce may eat from them by Torah law, as the decisive factor is whether or not the produce is attached to the ground. Evidently, Rav maintains that one who safeguards is considered like one who performs labor, and therefore he has a status of laborer. And Shmuel says that, conversely, Shmuel says that the sages taught the halacha of the Mishnah that they may eat by local regulations only with regard to watchmen of wine presses and piles of detached produce. But watchmen of gardens and orchards may not eat, neither by Torah law nor by local regulations. This shows that Shmuel holds that one who safeguards is not considered like one who performs labor, and therefore no watchman is entitled to eat by Torah law. In the particular case of detached produce, there is a local custom to allow a watchman of detached produce to eat from it. Rav Acha bar Rav Huna raised an objection to his reasoning from a Braita. One who safeguards the red heifer after it has been burned renders his garments impure, in accordance with halakha concerning all those who take part in the ritual of the red heifer. The Torah decrees that all those who take part in the ritual of the red heifer contract impurity. Numbers chapter 19. It is therefore necessary to establish which people are considered to have taken part in this ritual. And if you say that one who safeguards is not considered like one who performs labor, why does he render his garments impure? He has not performed any labor. Rabba bar Ula said, he does not render them impure due to his work as a watchman. Rather, this is a rabbinic decree, lest he move a limb of the heifer. Rav Kahana raises an objection with regard to one who safeguards 4 or 5 cucumber fields, which contain various types of cucumbers and gourds belonging to different people. This one may not fill his stomach from any single one of them. Rather, he must eat from each and every one by proportionate amount. But if you say that one who safeguards is not considered like one who performs labor, why is he allowed to eat at all? Why is he allowed to eat at all? Why is he allowed to eat at all? Okay. Rav Shimi Barashi said, they taught this halakha with regard to uprooted cucumbers, concerning which even Shmuel agrees that a watchman may eat them by local regulations. The Gemara raises a difficulty. Uprooted? But at that stage, hasn't their work already been completed with regard to tithes? And therefore no laborer should be permitted to eat them? The Gemara answers, this is referring to a case when their blossom had not yet been removed. Since the cucumbers still require work, they are not yet subject to tithes. Rav Ashi said, stands to reason that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Shmuel. As we learned in the Mishnah, in 87a, all these laborers may eat by Torah law. A laborer who performs labor with produce attached to the ground and at the time of the completion of the work, for example, harvesting produce, and a laborer who performs labor with produce attached from the ground before the completion of its work. The Mishnah's phrase, by Torah law, proves by inference that one with regard to detached produce there is one who does not eat by Torah law, but by local regulations. Okay. The word continues, its proof. Now, say the latter clause of the Mishnah. Of that Mishnah. And these may not eat. What is the meaning of may not eat? We say this means that they may not eat by Torah law, but by local regulations. This is the same as the first clause. Rather, is it not correct to say that it means that they may not eat at all, neither by Torah law nor by local regulations? And who are the people included in this list? They are one who performs labor with produce attached to the ground at a time when it has not reached the completion of its work, and all the more so watchmen of gardens and orchards who do not perform any significant action. That will be part 1. I think we'll continue with part 2 of 93. Oh, this is... Yeah. It's a small part, but, we'll continue with part 2.